Welcome to the village. Life is simple here, or at least it was. You see, the residents thrived here, living together through farming, trading, and kinship. But one day, an evil being came upon them, known simply as the player. As soon as the player had arrived at their town, he began plundering their village, their crops, their animals, and even their beds. Their protectors, the iron golems, had been killed for their iron, a resource the player was desperately searching for. The player then locked all the villagers in their homes, and the villagers could do nothing but surrender. So, why am I telling this story? Unfortunately, it does not speak of an uncommon occurrence. We see this in countless stories from around the world, in various corners of literature, and even in our own society. So I compiled 3 books that I have been reading that I believe show how the idea of gaining more money can lead to greed that overshadows a person's capacity for empathy. We see this in The Player, and we also see it in Jay Gatsby from the first book I have for you today, The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald. Gatsby was a millionaire who lived in his mansion in New York City. In his earlier years, he grew up poor but came into his wealth through illegal and arguably unethical methods, such as bootlegging and getting involved with Mayor Wolfsheim, a gambler who supposedly fixed the 1919 World Series. Gatsby's illegal acquisition of wealth is reflected by the player's immoral exploitation of the villagers and the golems so that he could get the iron that he was looking for. But the player was not satisfied. The more golems spawned, the more iron the player would get, and the player had discovered that the iron golems appear when the villagers are in danger. He got an idea, an awful idea. If he could put the villagers in danger, he could get a lot of iron from the golems that spawned. The villagers, powerless, were offered safety and security, and they could even be with their friends. However, it was all a facade. The villagers were trapped just outside arm's reach of a zombie, living in constant fear of death. Unfortunately, this had worked in the player's favor, and the villagers' fates were sealed to spend the rest of time with everlasting fear, unable to even sleep. Putting these villagers in danger is similar to how John Hammond put his clients in danger, even if it was unintentional. In Michael Crichton's Jurassic Park, John Hammond is a billionaire focused on generating as much money for himself as possible through his awe-inspiring dinosaur zoo that breaks through all known scientific barriers. However, he needs someone to endorse his park on Isla Nublar, so he turns to Alan Grant, a paleontologist, and Ellie Sattler, a paleobotanist, and offers to fund their research if they help him convince investors to invest in his park. However, he neglects to inform them that the park contains actual living dinosaurs that could be potentially dangerous, and coupled with his park's distinct lack of competent fences, that ends up being a recipe for disaster. In his mind, he is in denial of the dangers his park poses to the people he brings to the island to look at it. This is the problem. Just like the player, he only cares about what he can gain and doesn't think enough about how he is gaining it. The player puts the villagers dangerously close to a zombie to get more iron golems, and John Hammond puts his clients dangerously close to dinosaurs to get investors. Ian Malcolm, a mathematician and believer of chaos theory who was brought to the island, said scientists are actually preoccupied with accomplishment, so they are focused on whether they can do something. They never stop to ask if they should do something. He is talking about Hammond and his head scientist Henry Wu when he says this to prove that they don't think about all the consequences before doing things that would make them a fortune. John Hammond himself even admits to this, and even that he doesn't care about people when they get in the way of scientific discovery. When he and Wu are talking about the practicality of new bioengineering technology, he says that it would be a waste to use that technology to fight illness and disease and help mankind. Similarly, the player does not care about helping his villagers with the danger of zombies because it would interfere with his production of precious iron. Why am I sitting in a Meyer parking lot? That's actually a good question. If you've never read Oliver Twist, it's essentially about this orphan child named Oliver Twist. Because he is an orphan, he gets sent to a parish, which is essentially a place meant to take care of orphaned and poor children. But the parish he is sent to is more like a workhouse,
in the sense that they make you work, and it's hard work, and they don't get rewarded for it. So the irony is that he goes to a place to take care of orphans and ends up at possibly the worst place for orphans. The main kind of headmaster there is Mr. Bumble, the beetle. He's bad. He treats the orphans very, very poorly. In fact, the only food they get is gruel, which is essentially straight up slop. It's not good. And they don't get enough of it. And they have to work. Hard work. They're not paid. This is what happens when rich people take advantage of the poor. Poor Oliver Twist. He was just hungry. All he said was, "Please, sir, can I have some more?" And you know what they did? They gasped. They were in shock that the audacity this kid had just to ask for more food. And he was punished harshly. They stuck him in solitary confinement and beat him. This is unfortunate. All this does is expose the corruption that many wealthy people have. They care more about themselves than anyone else. Just the fact that he was beaten for simply asking for more food. It's heartbreaking.